So you've identified the problem. You've figured out, you've got your strategy. I mean, what are you gonna sort of pass that down to someone else to go out and evaluate, try and find vendors that can help you fix that? Or are you going to go to analysts to say, these are the set of problems I've got, who do you recommend? Or are you going to go to, how do you take that next step? How does that happen usually?
So we were at Bank of America, we were well funded. I'll put it that way. So we had a team that could easily do that. We had a dedicated team that was focused on being able to get the latest pulse on what type of technologies were available. In fact, in many ways, I would almost kind of take on what the Goldman Sachs model, which is if an analyst has to tell you that this is a space you need to be concerned about, you're already too late. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So part of our job, particularly for those organizations that are well-funded and have very active threats coming after them, I think it's important that you understand and study the space well ahead of some analyst.
Right. Yeah.
So that's one particular view. However, of course, not every organization is in that same situation. And so when it comes to that, I think you should absolutely depend upon an analyst and those different groups that will help you synthesize that space and give you options and understand what the pros and cons are. But usually that only happens in a meaningful way about anywhere between 18 months to 24 months after that space has first emerged.
Cool.
So, like I said, if you're at the bleeding edge of the threat space, then it might be too late by then, right? You're facing these issues well before the mass market is, and once the mass market does start facing them, that's when you'll see an analyst firm come around and saying, "Let me tell you about this space that you should also be concerned about."
Right. Okay. And obviously, do you take a lot of notice about what the analysts are saying? I mean, do they play a valuable role for you as a CISO when you're trying to figure out what's happening? I mean, so I got the impression that you felt that perhaps analysts weren't as quick to the mark as some of the other trends that you can see because you're actually out there on the front line. Would that be fair to say?
Actually, let me recalibrate my comment a bit. What I mean by analyst firms versus analysts, let me try to distinguish the two. So the analyst firms, there's an incentive around publication of reports where if it doesn't have much in it, then they won't get the traction that they need. So that's why they wait. I mean, I think there's a disincentive to actually publishing really early because there's just not the kind of traction that you would want for a report that goes out.
Not thought about that. Interesting. Yeah.
The analysts themselves, though, I think are actually keeping up pretty well. They will oftentimes see the latest startups. They will see what's going on in the market space, and they'll try to reason through it and figure out what's going on. So if you have direct conversations with the analyst, then I think you'll get the insights that are very helpful. It's very similar, actually, in some ways, to having conversations also with VCs too. As you may imagine, VCs are, of course, being exposed to a lot of these things. But we don't necessarily, I noticed that we don't necessarily make decisions just based on trends. We make decisions on a lot of other factors, like, for example, how good the founders are, right? That's a really important factor. But I'm actually really interested in those companies that they rejected, not because the idea was good, but because the founders weren't good, right? I actually am very interested in those spaces that some founders said, hey, this is something that really we need to pay attention to. But for whatever reason, the founder just wasn't a good fit, right? But the problem space that they are dealing with is actually really interesting. And understanding how they're thinking about that problem space and more so how they're thinking about solutions for it, that's really valuable insight that I oftentimes try to seek out.